Welcome to Doomscroll. I'm Lisa Curry.
Hey, and I'm Matt Sheffield. And today we're joined again by friend of the pod, Amanda Marcotte from Salon. Good to have you here again.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. And well, the news cycle, it is just nonstop now. I think everybody, this is the baton death march of news cycles, I think. It's going to be this way all the way till election day, I think. And
so exciting.
Yep. Hey, it's good if you're a journalist. Yeah, hopefully. God, I really hope so. But we'll see. Anyway, but I think obviously the biggest news right now going on is that after she jumped in the race, Kamala Harris has really improved the showing for Democrats. She actually is ahead of Joe Biden, or ahead of Donald Trump in the polls now, in both the Nate Silver's polling average, and if you look over on 530, if you look over on Real Clear Politics, most of the polls there now show her ahead, including the right-wing poll Rasmussen reports, which of course that means nothing.
I think a large part of the excitement around Kamala isn't because everyone was hoping that our next president would be Kamala Harris. It's just like, Jesus Christ, it's somebody different. It's not somebody who's been in politics for 150 years. It's not this insane rapist grifter. It's like, I think people are not realizing that it's been a full decade since 2014, when we were going through primaries then, that Trump starts to enter the scene. And it's been a full decade of stress and crazy news stories and constantly trying to put out fires. And it's like, there's all these, it's like you can't, the election is so stressful, and then you're trying to like stay afloat financially, and then there's the pandemic. Like, I think we were just all so maxed out that anything different feels so exciting.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And well, and I think people who are kind of, center to left opinions finally have somebody that can actually go and campaign, like run a campaign like Donald Trump. I think that's a thing that really wasn't appreciated by a lot of people, is that Joe Biden was making it easy for him because he never went anywhere. He never went and did events because, he was being the president, but he just didn't have enough energy to go out there and campaign. And Kamala Harris is doing it.
I wrote about this, that functionally, like, Donald Trump is also a weird old man. Well, Biden's not weird.
You don't say.
Yeah. Biden's not weird, but Trump is a weird old man, and it was actually to his campaign's benefit to keep him, in the MAGA only media and only doing rallies and stuff that wasn't really making news, because it allowed people to kind of forget how terrible Donald Trump was. And he could only do that by dint of not having to compete against a candidate who was campaigning against him heavily. And you can tell already that they're thrown just by the fact that Harris can get out there. She can make news. She can do interviews. She can do events that are getting her name out there, are getting people excited. I think that, a lot of Trump's his campaign's probably a lot of their reasoning for putting him at the National Association of Black Journalists event was that they actually have to compete now. And
yeah.
The result was, I think we all saw, I know that I'm not everybody, and I don't know, maybe there's this huge constituency of Americans that really just want to vote for a guy who wants to pull out the calipers and discuss whether or not somebody's exactly Asian or black enough for his taste.
We do need a chart, though. We need to figure out what is the right amount of every ethnicity, because it's just science, Amanda. This is the thing. I'm half Polish and half Irish, and so that carries some things. I'm not sure what. I still have to talk to the scientists.
Well, actually we have the clip. Yeah. We have the clip of Trump saying this to Rachel Scott of ABC when she asked him about it.
I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage. And she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always
But you know
identified
what?
as a black woman.
I
She went to a
respect
historically
either
black
one.
college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do
And
you
I
believe
think,
that
I think
she is
somebody should look into that too when you
I mean, look,
So-
so did Rachel Dolezal. You know, we've got a question.
Oh God, this is like, it's so gross. It's so gross. Who is the constituency for this? Like, it's an old man, gross, weird rant that would have been gross in the 70s. Just like,
Mhm.
you say she's both Indian and black? How is that possible? And it's like, do you not know how babies are made, sir? You know?
Yeah.
Well, you know what though? Like, I think it actually does. This is a really good example of not only how he's racist, but also that he's just so old and out of touch. Because, you know, as Lisa has said on the show before, you know, when Trump was born, we did not have 50 states, and when Trump was born, there was racial segregation, and like
Mhm.
so in his childhood
And when
world.
Trump was running Mar-a-Lago, and when Trump was running,
Yeah, exactly.
Marriages like Kamala
Uh,
Harris's were banned in many states. Her parents were banned in many states. Well, and also hers, right? You know.
Yeah, exactly. So like for him, when his worldview was being formed, there weren't mixed race people walking around, especially in his circle where, you know, everybody was 100%, you know, German
That he
and
knew of.
well, that he knew of. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Adam Sewer wrote a really good piece about this, which I think pointed out something that needs to be underscored, which is I think a lot of the press is reporting this as like Trump's outreach to black people. And it's like, you know, what group has always accepted that you can be black with a mixed race heritage is black people always. And I think
That's
that
true.
I disagree that he's actually doing outreach to black people. I think he thinks this is going to appeal to white people that agree with him about his weird security politics. But
I mean, did you see Laura Loomer's insane? That woman needs to be. Listen, I'm trying to pull back on the harsh language because I think I'm driving Matt out of his mind. But let's just say she needs to be catapulted into an active volcano. But she was like saying this shit about like Trump is blacker than Kamala ever will be. And I don't remember the first part of what she said. She was saying something about like all he's done for quote unquote the blacks. And then the next paragraph was something like he has his own sneaker line. He has multiple baby mamas. And I'm like, you have got to shut the fuck up. You have got to shut the fuck up. This is crazy. And it's also like, you know, the Republicans, I love that they go from saying essentially in coded language, well, you would never want to vote for a black person, right? And then it's like, oh wait, she's not even black. You shouldn't vote for her because she's not black. Okay, well, which fucking is it?
Yeah. It's supposed to be chaotic. It's supposed to like be trolling. It's supposed to just, I think a lot of it is actually about trying to invoke this anxiety about like what it means to live in a multiracial society where these things are even, I don't know. I think it's
they
like,
shouldn't happen. They shouldn't happen.
They just want to be like, cause people to like feel like, why don't we just get rid of all this discussion and just only run white men ever again?
I mean, this is a lot of the same playbook that they ran against Obama, especially Trump himself. You know, like Laura Loomer, she also was trying to get all birth certificate on her as well, falsely claiming that she was listed as white on her birth certificate.
Well, I saw the birth certificate where they highlighted it and they were like, she said her father was black, and then it's like, and he wasn't, but her mom had written for her ethnicity Indian or Asian. I'm sorry. I don't want to misspeak, but I remember seeing this. And then her father didn't list a race, but he wrote Jamaican. And it's like, so what are Jamaicans then, guys? What are they? By your own definition. It's so fucking stupid. It's like, oh, it doesn't say black. It says he's Jamaican. It's like, oh, okay, he's from fucking Zimbabwe, but it doesn't say he's black. All right, guys.
They didn't use the word black back then.
Yeah, well, and
It's so dumb.
Well, and the whole birth certificate, like they're actually dusting off John Eastman, a tweet from 2022, actually, with this for him to say that she's not eligible to be president because she wasn't. This like, it's not working anymore, though. That's the thing, like, because we've all seen this shit before, and it was stupid the first time, and now everybody, most people are realizing, oh, this is just the same old shit. It's just not working, and they're kind of losing their minds because they don't know what to say against her in any sort of effective manner, and it's breaking them. And I have to give props to Rachel Scott, who started off that NABJ interview. I mean, she, normally when Trump gets into a situation, and most Republicans broadcast TV, cable TV interview situation, they coddle these people. They treat them as if they're sincere in the things that they say, and they don't make them own up to things they said or did before. That's just like everything starts over, and you saw that with the convention that the Republicans had, they're like, oh, Donald Trump he's a changed person. It's all different now, and it's like, no, this is fucking marketing. Like, you guys work in media. You know what marketing is. And you know what branding is. Like, wake up.
It was like a really what's funny is like he was trying to make a spectacle out of the words DEI, which means diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it was such a master class in showing why we need diversity in media, because I think one reason that Donald Trump used to get away more often with his racist provocations was that he would say them to white journalists who were really uncomfortable with discussing it, so they wouldn't would just let it kind of go by. And she was not uncomfortable with discussing this. She was ready to respond to him.
Also, on that note, I'm like, what's so frustrating to me watching this is we've had to deal with this moron for a decade now, and this is the first interview that I can remember, although I will say, for my own sanity, I have blocked out a lot of the last decade. But this is the only one in my memory where they really hold his feet to the fire. And I'm like, even the debates, I'm like, Jake Tapper should also be thrown into a volcano for not pushing back on anything. He's like, oh, yes, sir. Great idea. What are you doing? I don't even give a shit which side he's on. Yeah, it's like, he's saying absolute nonsense. And aren't you a journalist? Isn't it your job to call him out? I'm a comic, and I know better.
Yeah. Although, no, I agree with that. Although Biden he could have done it too. He should have done it. And
absolutely.
He really did.
Well, we don't have to worry about that anymore.
I think it's also part of the old guard where these people came up in a time where and Trump disrupted this, but came up in a time where you were just polite to everybody no matter what. And you do this weird, stilted political speak, and you make sure that you speak in vague ways so you're not offending anyone, and you cover everything. And I think younger generations are like, no, let's get to the point. Let's say the thing that everyone else isn't saying. Let's address the elephant in the room. And I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And and Republicans beginning with Newt Gingrich really took advantage of that and completely shit on the, respectable politics that existed before. And everybody else pretended that it was still there. I was really glad to see what she did. And, and this, it fits within this continuing miasma that Trump and JD Vance are having around themselves about, people correctly pointing out that these guys are weird as fuck. They're just strange. And the Republicans have nothing. They don't even know how to respond to that. And Trump, he basically, we got the clip here of him basically trying to do, I know you are, but what am I?
They're the weird ones. And if you've ever seen her with the laugh and everything else, that's a weird deal going on there. They're the weird ones. Nobody's ever called me weird. I'm a lot of things, but weird I'm not.
I love Tim Walz so much, and I'm desperate for him to be the VP pick, because coming from rural Indiana, I'm like, he's somebody that can speak to everyone, and he's such a real person, and him just calling them weird took off like wildfire. And it's like, I was listening to his interview on the Daily this morning where he was saying, he's like, I'm not trying to insult his followers. I'm saying he's weird. This is weird. The policies he's trying to put, nobody's asking them to ban books. No one is asking for that. And yet that is their priority. People want healthcare. They want their kids to be able to go to school. They want their families to be fed. And it's really just that simple. And I think that a lot of times, and now I'm going off on a tangent, but I think that a lot of times both parties, but especially Democrats, when we're like, here's what we can do for you, we make it so complicated. And we're making it this whole, like, it's like one of those cork boards with all the red string, like when you're solving a crime. It's like, it's really not that complicated. It's like people want to be able to live a comfortable life, not even extravagant. The people I know in rural Indiana have no big dreams of like being rich. They're just like, I'd like to be able to make my house payment and go to a water park with my kids once in the summer and maybe take them for a couple weeks, you know, go on a road trip in the fall during spring break or what, you know, it's like during spring break isn't in the fall, hence the name spring break. But you know what I mean? It's just, it's so much simpler than we've made it out to be in the past. And it's, anyway, I love Tim Walz for that. And I love him for just saying they're weird because it's so simple.
It is. Yeah. You can't miss that message. And it's also, it's a simpler message because, like, I mean, you know, we in the progressive, you know, punditry world or commentator world, you know, we've been talking accurately about how Trump and his henchmen are, you know, they are actively trying to destroy the American government and to impose, you know, theocratic fascism or whatever version they want of that. We're correct to say that, but like, I have long had this kind of feeling that I don't think that the average normie who doesn't follow the news can understand that because they don't know what fascism is. Like to them, when you say fascist, they're like, oh, Adolf Hitler, they're not marching with Nazi signs down the street. That's just not true. I don't think that's right. Or I can't understand that.
I think there's something really, like, I forget what pundit I was listening to made a really good point, which is like one of the changes between the Biden campaign and the Harris campaign, the messaging that's really been effective is like from democracy as the watchword to freedom, because democracy is difficult for people to wrap their minds around, like, and it's kind of dry and it's a system of government. But like freedom is the word that people latch onto because that's the results that they want, right? That's like my life, you know. And it is true that like democracy can often sound a little abstract. I mean, it's not that people are against it. It's just that it focuses the attention more to say freedom, like to read a book or, you know,
how you live your life. Yeah.
Have an abortion if you need one, have kids, have IVF if you need that. Like, you know, screeching about childless cat ladies is weird. And it's also really creepy and controlling. And it's, I think, something that like normies can kind of wrap their mind around, which is like, okay, so you don't like the childless cat ladies and you want to build policy around that. What would that look like?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and then JD Vance goes around and votes against the child tax credit, which he just did. So like, it's not at all about promoting families. It's about enforcing his religious fundamentalist viewpoints.
Yeah, it's promoting families, all stick, no carrot.
And promoting families by forcing women to stay at home and not have any rights, basically. And and at the same time, you know, but even beyond that, like, so Harris has been personally a very effective messenger of standing up for women's rights, but also even like the Harris people didn't stand away when there were calls, like Zoom calls that were done for like black men for Harris, white dudes for Harris. And these calls went great. And like they raised millions of dollars and the Fox News people, they don't have any idea how to respond to this. They're like, what, men are supporting a Democrat? Jesse Waters, he had a short circuit on the air basically. And we got the clip here.
Why any man would vote Democrat. It's not the party of virtue, security.
Virtue, Donald Trump.
It's definitely not the party of family. And to be a man and then vote for a woman just because she's a woman is either childish, that person has mommy issues, or they're just trying to be accepted by other women. And I heard the scientists say the other day that when a man votes for a woman, he actually transitions into a woman.
Oh, is that right?
That's what the science
the
says.
science says
what
that.
If it was that easy, I think a lot more people would be doing it. Yeah.
Why would you have hormone replacement therapy if you can simply vote for the other gender, and then there you are, you find yourself in that body? This is like the dumbest plot of a Freaky Friday movie anyone could have come up with.
You guys are mocking. The science told him that. The scientist told him that. Come on
The
now.
scientist. Here's the thing. It's like, there's no part of me that believes Jesse Waters believes that. But I think their viewers have gotten dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber, and they just keep pushing it. And they're like, let's see if we can get them to believe this. Okay, now let's see if you can get them to believe this.
I think
And
that
it's
was
like
a
there
joke,
will be some.
but
Oh, I think there for sure is going to be some people watching that are like, oh, well, that is a good point.
Maybe
I
it'll
guess
elevate your estrogen.
if you support women,
I mean, there's
there's a
definitely
transference there.
like the Alex Jones type world, like definitely is obsessed with the idea that men's hormone levels are being affected by feminism, by eating soy, like that somehow men are being quietly emasculated. And it's
hell,
like,
I might be turning gay just from talking to you guys right now.
and yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that like people like Tucker Carlson had this like entire hysteria about this idea that men's testosterone levels are declining for some kind of like liberal reason. And it's like, no, and that's not how any of this works.
No. Yeah. They're just freaking out about this stuff. And even the dumbest one so far yet is this podcaster that I found on Mike Lindell's channel.
Oh boy.
He has thoughts about why people are calling Republicans weird.
They started saying that we are weird. It's because it's a demonic spirit. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but it's true.
I mean, I like to hear that. I think
Me
you
too.
should say that everywhere all the time.
Yeah,
That's
demonic
right.
spirit sounds exciting to me.
I want them all to say that, like constantly. Like, there's no better argument to prove that you're normal than to say that the people who say you're weird are doing it because of demons.
If they've got demon possession, that must be it,
Has to be.
I mean, when people are saying demonic spirit, I know you grew up Mormon, Matt, and so maybe this was not in your wheelhouse, but I grew up around a lot of evangelicals, and they literally believe that people are possessed by demons. And that's what he is talking about.
He is. And like, I mean, Mormons. So the Mormons, when I was as a kid, they weren't so big into demonic possession, but it was more like Satan was constantly tempting you and whispering in your ear and making you do all the evil things. And
do all the fun things, really.
Call people weird.
Well, yes. And that right there, no, that is you hit the nail on the head there, Lisa. Like, that's why this weird attack works so well, because it's fucking true. And even they know it. Even they know, like when I was a fundamentalist Mormon, I knew that most people around me were not, even fundamentalist Christians generically. Like, I knew that they weren't. I knew that they thought the Bible wasn't literally true. I knew that, all this stuff. I knew that they didn't believe that Noah's, flood happened. Like, all of this, like, they all
Noah's
know.
flood.
Yeah. Like, they all know that everyone thinks their ideas are dumb. And this hits them where it counts. And so I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, this is thrilling to me. It's also like they're just not paying attention to anything, because statistically people are believing less and less in God in the United States. So it's like, yeah, so it's like if you're that's your angle. You're having a smaller and smaller audience. Why?
Yeah.
Why is that still your strategy? You
It's
dum dums.
It's one of those things. I've interviewed Robert Jones of PRRI a while ago, and he made a really good point, which is like, what happens is that these churches embrace these increasingly weird ideas. You know, he would have said like bigoted, anti-science, things like that, and they lose some of their more moderate and especially younger members. Who then kind of, once they're out of the church, they start drifting away from belief altogether. But then what happens is the people that are left, they're smaller and they're weirder, and they get stranger and stranger over time. And I think we're seeing the same phenomenon happen to the Republican Party. I was at the RNC.
Absolutely.
And it was definitely smaller this time than 2016, like by a lot.
Wow.
Like by, I'd say, about half. We did some research on it at Salon and found that supposedly 44,000 people came in 2016, and this year it was only 27,000 Secret Service clearances.
Ooh.
And you couldn't get in without one.
Whoa. Okay. All right.
So
that's good. Good.
And it was quiet all around. Like I went to I would go get dinner like a couple blocks away from it. No one in there. The only people in there were like some of the cops on their break.
It's a good sign. Yeah, I think you're right though.
Whoops.
Headphones.
Sorry. I think we're going to win for sure. For sure. I mean, I think we still have a lot of work to do, and I hope people really push for down ballot candidates, because otherwise it's going to be like, why isn't Kamala doing anything if she doesn't have the House and the Senate? But yeah, I feel hopeful for the first time in a very long time.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I have to say, somebody who's feeling not hopeful about all this is Daily Wire commentator Matt Walsh, which anytime that guy feels bad, like everybody loves it. But he had a brief moment of mental clarity recently, in which he warned Republicans that you should stop putting forward our loser celebrities. Because I'm just going to read what he said. He said, note for Republicans, Kamala has all of the big name entertainers on her side. All of them. And she hasn't even pulled out the big guns yet. The Taylor Swift rally appearance will happen soon enough. Please do not try to counter this by parading around a bunch of washed up or obscure entertainers that nobody cares about. That just makes us look sad and irrelevant. Best to bow out of the celebrity competition and argue that we should focus on policy instead. It's the only hand we have to play.
I hate to say this. I hate to say this, but he's not wrong.
Not wrong.
Like as advice, that's very good advice for the Republicans. Counterpoint to myself is that Hulk Hogan's appearance at the RNC was like the fun I had there.
That was amazing.
Oh yeah, wait. So when you were there though, how did the big people there, like what did they think of it?
Oh, he drove the crowd nuts. He's great at what he does, even though he's like an old washed up celebrity. Like he turned it out. Like it was interesting because it was him and Tucker Carlson, both professional entertainers, both full of shit. And at least Hulk Hogan, admitted it. Like he did not. The WWE admits that wrestlers are actors.
And then it's fake.
Yeah, they didn't want to, but they do admit it now. And he showed up and he brought the house down. He was hilarious. And I mean, I don't think anyone was taking, they knew it was a shtick, right? And so I think it was just funny and fun for people. But what was kind of scary to me was that even though he was being a goofball, the core message, the serious message of his speech was that the only real Americans are Trump voters.
And he said that repeatedly. Yeah.
Repeatedly. And he's dead serious about that. And so I'm alarmed, obviously, by somebody selling a deeply fascist message with a really entertaining shtick that makes it seem kind of harmless.
Yeah.
I laughed, but I felt dirty about it.
Yeah, well, it
Sure.
was for fake wrestler for a fake populist is how I saw it. But Kamala Harris is going to be thinking about her own convention pretty soon here, and she's got her veepstakes going. You want to lead us on that one, Lisa?
Sure. Kamala Harris has narrowed it down to 3 potential vice presidential candidates: Josh Shapiro, Mark Kelly, and Tim Walz. And I will lay down on train tracks for Tim Walz. I think I am 100% certain in my heart and my mind that he is the best candidate. I am from rural Indiana. He is from rural Minnesota. He can speak to people on the other side and people in the middle in a way that I think Josh Shapiro and Mark Kelly cannot. I think they're both, I really love Mark Kelly, but I think the two of them they have a little bit too much politician brain, where I think Tim Walz is an excellent politician, but he's also a human. He was a teacher. He has gotten Minnesota to an excellent place. I love him also because we need someone that's not going to condescend to the other side, because I know from talking to family and friends back home, one of the biggest problems I think Democrats face is we do act like elitists. We're like, oh, well, we read this in the New Yorker, so we're actually smarter than you. And it's like, these people aren't reading the fucking New Yorker. And it's not because they're not smart enough. It's because they just don't have time. They are working 60 hours a week in a steel mill and driving 2 hours each way. And they get to see their family for a little bit on Saturday and Sunday. And they just want to enjoy that time. And they're watching the local news. And then when we come in and we're like, yeah, well, you're fucking stupid. It's like, okay, well, then fuck you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you need somebody to not. I mean, that is basically what happened with. The irony is that Barack Obama did really well at getting votes, but the people who he put into the political operations for Democrats totally dropped the ball, and they did write people like they deliberately took money away from state parties, and we're like, no, we need to put it into the national party, and like. It used to be pretty common that you would like the whole idea of a red state or a blue state. It didn't really exist for a long time. Now, there are some other reasons for that, but some of them are that Democrats stopped trying to compete for other people, I feel like. What's your take on that?
I think Josh Shapiro would be a mistake. Now I've said that, watch her pick him. I should be there. I plan to be there, and they're announcing it here in Philadelphia on Tuesday. So we'll see. I think Waltz is great. I think Andy Bashir could be super fun because he would just stick it to JD Vance. And usually, I usually just feel like the thing with a Veep is that you want them to just not hurt you, right?
Yeah.
But they rarely add anything to the ticket, even when they're really great, like Waltz is, like, because no one cares. I think that they can hurt you, though, because they can make people think, oh, you've got bad judgment if you pick this person, which I think definitely what happened to John McCain when he picked Sarah Palin, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it took away his argument against Obama not being experienced.
Yeah, it made him look like a fool. And I think that, so a lot of these people are great. I don't think they would hurt, but like Shapiro, I'm a little worried about because it could put Gaza into the discourse, and I just don't want that to happen. Like,
yeah.
So, and I wish, there's good reasons and bad reasons that's true. I don't want to get into that. I just don't think that it's worth the gamble right now. But the one thing about Andy Bashir that I think would be interesting is that maybe there's an opportunity to take it to JD Vance and turn him into the candidate that helps drag down Trump's ticket, because every kind of normie I've talked to since the RNC brings JD Vance up unbidden. They know I'm a political journalist, so there's that context, but just random people I talk to, just friends, like people I know that in the service industry, I get text messages from folks and they're just like, that JD Vance, what the fuck? Like, so I think he has the potential to be a Sarah Palin like drag on the ticket, and
Mhm.
anybody who can
I think
just
so. Yeah.
call him a phony over and over again would be fantastic.
Isn't Andy Bashir out of the running though? I thought it was
I
just down to the
know.
other three.
Yeah.
Interviewed him.
Yeah, I think it is based on the reporting, but I mean, who knows how accurate it is? You never know because they don't say who the sources are. But yeah, at least as far as I know, as of this recording, it is just those three. But I think you're right that
I think also
Yeah,
Mark
Bashir
Kelly
would be
might hurt Kamala with progressives. One, I'll say two things. I fully agree with you with Josh Shapiro. I don't think he should be in the running because I think there's no way. I think that would hurt her. I think Mark Kelly, you should be proud of what your family's done, but him so pridefully talking about his family being cops, there's progressives already don't like Kamala because the thing they don't like about Kamala, I should say it that way, is they call her a cop. And so it's like, if we double down on cops, people are going to be like, what the fuck? But my concern is, I worry that Kamala's team won't pick Walz because he's so progressive. And I'm afraid that they're going to make the bet that, oh, we can't go too far left in this election when we can, because Trump is so fucking insane. I feel like this is the perfect time, and there's so much excitement around Kamala. This is the perfect time to try to really push for progressive policies because we can get them done now. We can get a more progressive ticket now in a way that I don't think we could have 4 years ago or 8 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens pretty soon here.
If they don't listen to me, so help me. I do
That's
feel
right.
like also Tim Walz went from being like unknown to in 2 weeks exploding and being beloved, and he's, people are his thing saying they're weird has been causing the Republican Party to implode in a way that it's like, Democrats are spending all this money like with polling and trying to figure out a strategy against Republicans, and it was literally just Walz coming out and saying they're weird. And that did it. That did more than millions and millions of dollars that have been spent.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. It's a fair point. I guess, of course, also driving home the message routinely just of how much, that the right wing is trying to take away people's freedom to live the lives that they want. And we're seeing some of the effects of that in Texas already, repeatedly. But most recently, there's a woman who runs an adoption agency in North Texas named Jody Hall. And she was accused of trying to sell the children of pregnant inmates in a prison there, which, I mean, this is literally everything that supposedly QAnon is against. I'm sure they're not going to talk about this one. But I mean, yeah, like this is forced birth. Like this is like literally a plot in the novel of The Handmaid's Tale. I don't know if you remember that. Like that's a little subplot where they're trying to buy and sell children. Like that's what happens.
It is also literally what happened prior to Roe. Like there were these maternity homes where they were mostly white girls back then. They would send teenagers and young women who were pregnant out of wedlock to maternity homes where they were forced to give birth. They were forced to give their children up for adoption. And most adoptions most adoptions in the US went through the system, which was like a very closed adoption system. I've talked to people that have relatives that went through this. It was very traumatic. And they did start to shut down after Roe, but not like, I think a lot of conservatives think it's because people started aborting these pregnancies instead of having them. It's kind of more complicated than that. Like there's a lot of evidence that instead what Roe did was it empowered a lot of young women who were pregnant and were going to have the baby to realize they could keep it and no one could say otherwise to them. Like it was like a general like, you're free now, women. Like
Mhm.
decision, because like what happened after Roe was that the abortion rate stayed about the same. It actually kind of started to go down after a while, but the rate of single motherhood went through the roof.
Mm.
Yeah, well, and the right wing doesn't want that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, they want to force women to have babies and they want to take them away.
yeah, basically. Well, and speaking of,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh
you're
my gosh, sorry, I still have myself muted from coughing. It's so fucked up because meanwhile they're screaming and crying about babies. We've already been saying, everybody on the left has already been pointing out that they don't care about kids at the border, but I've never seen an initiative, and maybe I'm just missing it my entire life, but I've never seen a big push from the right to empty out adoption agencies or what's it called, orphanages. I've never seen an effort to like, let's get these kids into homes.
Yeah, because they're
let's restrict women.
They're not infants, and like,
yeah,
like most of the kids that don't have adoptive families that are in the system are older, and like and yeah, they don't. The reality is that the number of people who want to adopt does outstrip the number of children available for adoption, especially when you're talking about people who are holding out for an infant. And that's basically all there is to it. Like they know this, they recognize this, and they think that the best way to fix the problem is forced childbirth. I mean,
just to have more infants forcibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ones that are taken from their mothers by force in some way or another, either through poverty or just actual force.
And speaking of captive women, though, Hannah Nielman, better known as Ballerina Farm on social media, she was profiled by the Times of London this week, and some pretty horrifying stuff came out in the profile. And well, Amanda, I put this on our budget just for you because you specialize in the Tradwife cult, basically. So tell us what the hell is going on with Hannah Nielman.
Yeah, so the profile was interesting. The reporter said that they kept trying to talk to Hannah, but like her husband just basically wouldn't allow them to just have a private conversation, and he constantly talked over her, corrected her, and wouldn't let her tell her own story. And then when the reporter did get some information out of Hannah, a lot of it was a little disturbing, like the fact that he tricked her into going on their first date, that he basically rushed her into marriage, and then and basically kind of boxed her in this way that made her feel like she couldn't continue her career as a ballerina because that is incompatible with the nonstop pregnancy that he also desires. She said at one point that while she repeatedly affirmed to the reporter that she agreed with her husband's views that pain relief and childbirth is not necessary and wrong.
And she's had eight kids, right?
Yeah. She admitted that one time he was out of town and she went to the hospital to have a baby and was like, it was great. They gave me an epidural. And like, it just over and over, like there was an air of coercion to all of this that really kind of came out. And now obviously I could have predicted how this was going to go. Hannah now, of course, is denying that she's in any kind of less than ideal marriage. I don't know how else to put this. It's not abusive, but it was definitely manipulative. It's gross. There's definitely grossness going on. Right. And like, it's interesting because I think like there's no doubt in my mind. Like I was also not surprised to find out that Hannah's like entire story she tells online about how she wanted this is exactly what she wanted turns out not to be true, because that's just baffling to me. Like I don't think that's why would you train to be a ballerina if you were just going to give it up?
Well, especially if you got into Juilliard, where they accept like 25 people a year, across the entire world. Like, just and then on top of that, she also, basically in the profile also that they said that her husband doesn't allow her to have childcare help either or maids. So
and he admitted she's so exhausted sometimes she can't get out of bed
for a week.
And he's rich. He could afford a fleet of nannies if he wanted.
Yeah.
I feel two ways about this because on the one hand, I'm like, this is fucking gross and awful, and I would hang myself before I would be in this situation. And then there's this kind of like other, I mean, it's 60% that, and then like 40%, I feel like, well, isn't part of feminism saying like, oh, well, she has the autonomy to make those decisions? Like, because I think that there is a little bit of something like, if a teenage girl is dating an adult man, obviously that's disgusting, that's grooming, she's a child, whatever. But there's also like, and I'm just making the parallel because I've seen this argument a lot where people are like, oh, Leonardo DiCaprio is grooming these women. They don't know what they're getting into. And it's like, because he's dating 27-year-olds. And it's like, so by saying that, by extension, you're saying they're too dumb to know better for themselves. Also, a friend of a friend hooked up with Leonardo DiCaprio and said he has a big old thing. And he's rich. So it's like that. I think that 27-year-old is coming out on top, even if he dumps her when she's 28, whatever, she's having a great time. So there is an element of it where it's like, there is a slice of it.
Situations though.
Totally.
I think that, I think social media discourse around this stuff gets real dumb real fast. I think most feminists, like writers and academics, definitely understand that this shit is complicated. And the reality is, I think, the way I would put it is, obviously women have autonomy. That's part of the article is Hannah shows autonomy over and over again, and her husband just rolls over her to deny it to her. Just even the ability to like say an opinion to a reporter who's doing a profile on you without being fucking supervised.
It's about you.
And
not
like,
about him.
I mean, I don't know. The way I put it is like, life is complicated, and obviously we're always under a bunch of like differing pressures. And he, just sort of taking the question of whether she has autonomy, which obviously she does, away from that and putting some of the spotlight on him, what we see is a lot of emotionally manipulative behavior that is put her in a situation where her choices got constrained in ways that I think she probably didn't even recognize until it was too late, right? And the reality is that like patriarchy does this to women, where we feel like, yes, you have autonomy, but what does that even mean in a world where the only way you get social approval is to get married young and start having children? It's people have autonomy, but you don't have a choice but to work a job, for instance, like to make money. And like our autonomy is always so limited by the environment we're in. And you see this man who he's a son of a billionaire. And he just exerted both male privilege and wealth privilege and just what was clearly a steamrolly type of personality over a woman who probably part of her story to herself about how she keeps her dignity is like that she is making choices. And she is making choices. Nobody denies that. It's just that like, it's sad. I think we've all made choices that in retrospect, we would have made differently if we'd had better information, I think.
Yeah. Well, what about, and like religion too, like, that's another factor in this also. Like if you're brainwashed religiously, that does take away your ability to choose to some degree. But you're, ultimately you still are accountable for the things that you do.
Also, to your point, Amanda, I have a friend who is married to a very wealthy man. and they knew each other in high school and whatever. And she prefers to not make any decisions, like down to like he buys her clothes. She's like, I don't give a shit. Buy me whatever. I hate shopping. And I can see how you can get into a situation like that where you're like, okay, I simply hate shopping and deciding what color the couch should be. And then that tips over into abuse.
Yeah, when I wrote about Tradwives, I was speaking to a friend who is in a church, a liberal Christian church that has a lot of members that escaped fundamentalism.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking to some friends of hers who used to be in a companion or whatever, I forget the term for it, but like an unequal fundamentalist marriage, and now they're trying to do an egalitarian marriage. And what the wife said to her was, you know, on some level it was easier being treated like a child, you know. Like you don't have there's a reason a lot of people have nostalgia for their childhood. Yeah, you didn't have any freedom, but you also didn't have to make any choices, and you had no responsibility for.
Well, that's why people like Trump, frankly.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's not a dignified way to live.
Yeah. Well, are you saying showing up and wearing a MAGA diaper is not dignified, Amanda?
Come on, that's elitist.
Well, speaking of dignity, in the news also, so zoos have been having to create social media policies for gorillas. It turns out, basically, because apparently people who are coming to zoos are taking pictures of the gorillas, and then they're showing the picture to the gorilla, and the gorillas like to look at pictures of themselves and of their friends. And zoos they're just not sure what they're going to do with it, because some of them are like, look, no photos of the gorillas, phones are banned. And others of them are like, hey, you know, it entertains them, gives the gorilla something to do. So it's going to be a little fun story to see what happens with this.
I am anti animals having any kind of electronics or social media because it's going to ruin their lives. I actually wish somebody would take my fucking phone away from me. Leave me alone. Put me in a cage. Feed me a couple of times a day. Let me run around naked outside. That's actually the life that I want. And I think that is the most ideal life. I think we shouldn't take that away from them.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also worried about the health of the phones. My cat is equally obsessed with pictures of cats on phones. And like if I show him, especially a video of another cat, he will he means well, but he will start clawing at it because he wants to get to the cat. He just loves to see cats on phones. And I'm like, I had to cut him off as much as
Yeah, you know, there somebody posted a video recently of a cat watching an Olympic gymnast. Actually, did you guys see that one? Somebody doing a bar routine where they were twirling, and the cat was like trying to catch it. It was cute.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah, no, I'm serious. This cat, he loves TV. He's a little addict.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Olympics, though, of course, they're going on right now, and
I'm loving these Olympics.
Yeah,
these are so fun.
Well, and Simone Biles, of course, did her thing after being getting injured in the last one, well, I guess not injured, but like taking a break for her mental health last time.
She did perform with an injury though. She had a calf injury that she just had taped up.
She did,
and she had a little bit of a slip on the uneven bars, and still, I mean, she got knocked down points for that, but still came out on top overall. And she's the oldest gymnast now at 27, which is crazy to think. Like
the old age.
Yeah,
yeah, I really love how I mean, a lot of reasons have the sport has changed, but she's been a huge part of like a proof of concept, right? That doing the sport with women and women's bodies instead of starved little girls is probably for the best across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the way she spoke up for mental health, I mean, I think she's the greatest athlete of all time for the athletic reasons, but I also think so because of how she's spoken up about mental health and how she's spoken up for her teammates and how she went up against what's his gross after the sexual assault stuff. It's like male athletes, LeBron is one of, if not the best basketball player of all time. And he's not had to sit in a courtroom and testify against somebody who repeatedly molested him and his teammates. I mean, and I'm glad that obviously that hasn't happened to him, but like, just because she was also tasked with doing that and overcame it and ended up helping her teammates and future gymnasts, I think she's the best.
Yeah, and there's a political angle to this also, though. I'm gonna try to pull it up here, and of course, it involves JD Vance. So he,
of course,
yeah. So last time, yeah, when Simone Biles pulled, when she withdrew from competition to focus on her mental health, JD Vance condemned her for that.
Did she let down the country, do you think?
Well, I think obviously it's understandable that she was going through an incredible amount of pressure. What I find so weird about this, and it reflects more on the media than it does on Simone Biles, is that we've tried to turn a very tragic moment, Simone Biles quitting the Olympic team, into this act of heroism. And I think it reflects pretty poorly on our sort of therapeutic society that we try to praise people not for moments of strength, not for moments of heroism, but for their weakest moments. And look, being an
Yeah. So needless to say, people dug that up this week, and as yet another reason to call him a weird
he's
asshole. So
insane.
Yep. Well, and Simone Biles kind of got back at the Republican ticket afterward when she quote tweeted a guy who was praising her, and she was like, "I love my black job," referencing Donald Trump. Well, yeah. So I mean, well, hopefully. Simone Biles will, and some other athletes will get some more political comments against Trump. I really hope so. But that's our last story for the day here. So, but Amanda, for people who want to keep up with your stuff, what's your recommendation for them?
Just go to salon.com. I write there every day, and I have a newsletter called Standing Room Only.
All right, sounds good. And everybody make sure to follow at Doomscroll Show on all your favorite platforms. And
please follow me on Instagram at Olympian Lisa Curry. Hey, it's the Olympics. I'm Olympian Lisa Curry. You got it.
That's right. Okay. All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank
Bye.
you.